All right, well, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers, and joining me as always for our Big 12 weekly roundup, looking past what happened this past week and previewing 4 games, of course, this upcoming weekend or weekday for one of these games. You'll find out here more in a minute. But joining me as always is Brandon Larson, our resident Utah fan on the program. Brandon, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Ready to break down some football. We got week 2 of the Big 12 hosting game day. It's a big week. It's good things for the Big 12.
Yeah, and a lot more spotlight is being shown on the Big 12 as we get closer and closer. We do know they released the top 12 rankings, the official college football playoff rankings for the first time earlier this week. And obviously, you see there's a handful of teams from the Big 12 conference that are, if they're not in it, then they're right around it. They're hovering around. So they're getting a little bit more spotlight here nationally. But we've done so for 7 weeks here, Brandon, since we started the show midway through the season. And it's nice to see we were kind of ahead of that trend. But without further ado, let's get into it. First game we have up here on the docket for the Big 12 this week is going to be Houston taking on UCF. Got the Houston Cougars taking on, of course, the UCF Knights. And coming into this ball game, this is going to be a Friday night matchup, mind you. This is going to be out there in Orlando, 8 o'clock kick. If you have the channel, it's going to be on FS1. And hoping for a good matchup in this one. Let's go to Brandon and get his analysis on this. Brandon, what do you think about the Cougars going over on the road, heading out to Florida, and taking on the Knights this year, or this upcoming matchup? Currently, Houston 7-2. 2 losses came in the Big 12. As for the UCF Knights, they are right at 500, 4-4 on the season. All 4 of those losses have been to Big 12 opponents, however. So let's talk about this matchup. Who do you like, and what do you think the final result will be?
Well, I'm going to start with UCF. At this point, we've seen what they've brought to the table. I mean, some of my notes, they had some really bad tackling last week. Turnovers really killed them. They've got to clean that up if they think they're going to be in this game with Houston, because that's why that game got out of hand last week with UCF, and that was what were they? They were Baylor, right? And
yes, they got blown out there.
Watching what Sawyer could do, I'm not saying that Connor can't do that, but I mean it starts with Wigman, and he's playing good ball right now. 16 TDs, 4 interceptions. He's got to cut down on those interceptions though. They've sparked, like, that was kind of that let the game get out of hand for them last week versus West Virginia. He threw a late pick 6 that then it kind of snowballed from there, and West Virginia pulled away with it. So, he's got to cut down on that. But it's different defense he's facing. UCF hasn't forced a whole lot of turnovers. So unless UCF does a 180 for what we've seen, this far into the season, I think Houston can handle this game. They've been in it with higher competitive teams. So I do think I like Houston in this one. I like them 31-14 over UCF.
Yeah, and I mean, coming into this game, UCF is just trying to get through the season at this point. Like I said, they got dominated by Baylor last week. And, honestly, for Houston, they were one of the biggest losers of the weekend. And I say that because, they lost to West Virginia, which we did preview that game. And, we thought
it should have
been
Houston.
Yeah, well, we both thought it should have been kind of a cakewalk for the Cougars, but that was not the case.
Shout out to that Fox Jr. kid, though. He showed up for West Virginia. Looks like West Virginia might have had a even better quarterback on their bench, because that dude
and who would have thought that?
Showing some promise.
We've seen so many changes over there, and say like Colorado and a couple other teams that it's just been a mess. But
got to find a spark where you can.
Yeah, that's all you can do sometimes. A lot of talented guys with up and down the roster. Don't matter what string you are. If you get that chance, then you'll rocket your way up past it. But let's kind of hone in here real quick on Houston. And like we mentioned, they took a big loss last week. You mentioned Wegman, had some costly mistakes. But do you think that they're obviously? I think a lot of people believe, and I'm gonna assume both of us, that this is going to be a bounce back for Houston because we do know that they are a better team than what we saw last week.
Definitely. I agree for sure. And I mean, their run game for sure. And their run game alone, they should be able to run right through UCF.
Yeah, with Connors, who's had a tremendous year so far. He's looked good. He's
With
had
Connors
four
and then
touchdowns.
Wiegman, I mean, he's at 9 TDs rushing now.
Yeah, he can get it done there as well.
So yeah, he's ultimate dual threat on that front.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, UCF, they've got some good players, both sides of the ball. But I think ultimately I am going to go with Houston getting the W in this one. For me, I'll go final score. I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring. I'll go with Houston putting up 34, and let's go UCF. I'll give them 21. I think they'll put up a good fight,
21.
but I'll go with Houston ultimately running away with this matchup. All right, let's get to our second game here on the slate. We're going to be talking about Kansas taking on Arizona back on Saturday for this game. 3:30 p.m. kick. And Brandon, let's talk about this first and foremost with these two teams here. Who do you like coming in? And I think it's going to be a really solid matchup between these two teams.
My knee-jerk reaction, I instantly kind of lean to Arizona. I think they're finding their groove and really getting things rolling right now. Arizona, they like I said, they're finding their rhythm offensively, and then their defense really stepped up. I mean, holding Colorado as low as they did, that was no feat because lately it'd been like a lot of their games had been shootouts, scoring 30 points or so. So I think it was good to see Arizona step up the way they did. They had a tough close loss to BYU and then responded back by a thumping of Colorado. Which I think they showed a stat, but it was like 100-something points to 14 is what Colorado's been outscored in the last two games. And so, is that more of a quality of opponent or, that they're finding their way? But then, I mean, I look at it, Jalen Daniels, I mean, it goes where he pushes it, 20 TDs, 3 interceptions. He's also he's their third leading rusher as well. So, I mean, if he has a good game, the way I looked at it is the battle of the mobile quarterbacks. We're going to have little dudes running all over, a lot of backyard football in this game is what I see happening. On that side, though, like I said, I think plays all over the field. I think the difference is going to be, though, I'm honestly leaning kind of the home field advantage and the momentum that Arizona's rolling with. Whereas, Kansas, they keep coming up short. They've had some close games, but then where they showed up, they played well, but couldn't quite get the dub at the end. I think that unfortunately continues this week. You want to give your score or I'll go?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I got Arizona 38-28 over Kansas. I think it is a bit of a shootout, but I think Arizona is rolling at the right time.
Yeah, with both these ball clubs, definitely two quarterbacks who you got to think the winner of this one is going to bump up in the draft charts as well. You would think. And, I could also see them having very even performances because we both know that with Daniels and with Fafita, both very talent rich and arms that, been with Kansas. He's a campus legend out there. And Fafita, we know that we've talked about his traits, throughout the program and how good he is. And so I think it's also, I'm with you on this. It's going to be more of a shootout. I think it's going to be maybe a little, I don't know how high it's going to get for the score, but I think that, with Kansas, they're coming off a 38-point win. There should be a 38-21 final score in that one against Oklahoma State. And, I think that with Arizona, who they're they beat the brakes off Colorado last week, 52-17, enough to. I know Colorado, just kind of some Big 12 news. They got rid of Pat Shurmur earlier in the week, so they say we're just going to wave the white towel for this season. It looks like and see what we can do for the rest of it. But for this matchup, I am thinking I'm going to lean with Kansas on this. This is really a toss-up. It really is. Either team has a good shot, I think, at winning this matchup. But I'm going to go with Kansas Jayhawks pulling away in this one. I'll go final score. I think it's going to be higher scoring. Let's go 38-35 for the Jayhawks in this matchup.
Ooh, I like it.
So I think this will be a good one. And of course, want to hear your thoughts in the comments as well for both these two games we've covered. And we've got even more action here with Iowa State going up against TCU, the Horned Frogs, another 3:30 p.m. kick for this one. And Brandon, let's talk about the Cyclones first and foremost. How do you think they're gonna come into this game here against TCU going on the road?
I mean, it really kind of goes with Rocco Beck. You look at his stats this year into this far into the season, and I actually even refreshed it an extra time to make sure because he's only 11 TDs to 7 interceptions on the
Yeah.
season. He's taken 17 sacks. Where's the Rocco Beck last year that led Iowa State to the to the Big 12 championship game is kind of what I'm wondering. Is it, did he, I don't know, I guess, was it that much of a difference? I know he had two pro wide receivers, right, that ended up going.
I believe
So
so, yeah.
that's definitely going to make a difference, but just a senior guy, you expect better out of that. And that was their main thing. Like that was what doomed them against BYU. They were right there in it. They were right there, and then he threw. They had the muffed punt, which I mean that's unfortunate that it happens. He literally got blocked into the ball, so
Yeah.
that's just a freak thing. But then the very following play, he turns and throws a late out route to the corner, and it turns into a pick six. Like you can't have costly turnovers like that because that completely flipped the game. It went anybody's game to, oh yeah, it looks like BYU has this in the bag at that point. So he's got to protect the football. At least going into it though, I don't feel like TCU's defense is BYU's defense. So that's gonna play well for them because I mean, as BYU, they've forced turnovers on everybody. It seems like they
Right.
don't give up the ball either. So they'll force the turnover and then play clean football. And I mean they stack their points on those turnovers. So that's going to be kind of the biggest difference I see going into here is the level of quality of defense. But on the flip side, Josh Hoover's slinging it. His favorite target's Eric McAllister. So, they can get it going on that side too. So I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I lean towards TCU just because I think they're healthier right now. Iowa State's missing so many dudes on defense that it's just whoever, they're playing whoever they can. I don't even think, they have any red shirts available on defense because they burned them all at this point with all the young guys that they're playing on that side. So that's going to be kind of the thing to watch because, like I said, I mean, TCU and Jay Hoover and Eric McAllister, like they're going to stretch this defense. They're going to try those corners. They're going to take those shots, and it's going to come down to can they hold up. And then on the flip side, I think Iowa State's going to try and run the ball, control the clock, and limit the opportunities that TCU actually gets. Because I mean, we've seen with TCU, they can get streaky and they can score real quick, real fast. So they obviously got to avoid that. And that, I mean, a couple turnovers or something, I could see this game getting out of it, but I can really see it going either way. But I kind of lean towards the more healthy team. But how do you see it?
Yeah, for this one, I'm in the same boat with you. With Iowa State, man, Rocco Becht, I thought he was going to have a much better year coming off a successful, like you mentioned, a junior season where he was coming into the year. A lot of people were expecting, like I said, more of the same from last year, if not better.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not been the case. He struggled. And, unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes. You come back and you bet on yourself and you say, all right, let's go one more round for it. And it just comes up short. And, he still has a little bit of time to turn it around for his own personal stats as he, gets ready to head off to the NFL, hopefully. But just as a team, it's been rough for Iowa State. A lot of people expected, they had a lot of high regard for them this season. And they were ranked pretty high in the polls, I believe, at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I forget maybe it was 9 or something like that, but they got into it at one point. And for TCU, a team that, kind of in a way, I feel, and a lot of people maybe, is they're still kind of they're not free falling. They are, I think, slowly and surely getting better. As we see this year, they're 6-2. They're looking a lot better. But a lot of people were still kind of waiting to this point because remember back back when they played Georgia and being from the state, we know how that went here. They were still trying to get everything figured out, but they've done a great job turning the program back into a winning tradition. Looking good out there with the Horned Frogs. But for, the thing that really trips me up about Iowa State, and much like you, just the defense. I mean, Jeff Sims set a rushing record. And also, just to remind everyone, Jeff Sims is a quarterback. He ran for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And not related to Phil Sims.
No, not related to Phil Sims. former Georgia Tech quarterback at one time, Jeff Sims.
Yep.
So we know him here in the state, but God, he looked like, Bo Jackson in Techno Bowl that no one could stop.
Yeah, he can run, but he's no Lamar Jackson, but that's how he looks.
No, I mean, he looked like it, though, against Iowa State. That's who they thought they were playing against this past Saturday. So, like you said, they are just, half the team's in the hospital right now, just getting treated, getting iced down. Injuries just, you always hate when they happen to, especially your team, but any team in any sport, really, that's expected to, have a good year, have a great year. And then just, unfortunately, they get bit by the injury bug and all just kind of, falls flat, unfortunately. You kind of lose a year. Especially, like in college, guys are only on a certain amount of time now. So,
well, and with the NIL, they might be gone, the next highest bidder the next year might draw them away to the, more appeasing looking school. Whether the grass is greener, we don't know.
No, yeah, we see the mass, exodus of players. It's insane at this point, and who knows what they're going to do, off this. But for TCU, they've looked good, right? They've won 3 of their last 4 overall, back-to-back dubs, including wins against Baylor, where they put up 42, and West Virginia, who they beat them on the road. Final score, that one a little bit closer, but still win 23-17 in that matchup. And, for the Horned Frogs, just looking at their program, like you mentioned, some of the talented players they have on offense and defense. Hoover, who's looked solid overall this year, 22 touchdowns, 12 sacks, over 2,300 yards in total. And Kavarian Barnes, right? He's looked solid at times. He's a good, kind of change of pace back. He's not, he averages a little bit over 5 yards per carry, but if you just look at the yardage, a little bit low, but that's more of a term of, all right, they're giving the carries and he's making the most with it. They could give him more if they needed to, but they have Hoover who's getting it done great through the air. So TCU has a very good attack on offense. And you mentioned, some of the great defensive standouts they have. You guys who are really, bringing the pain every week. Alarms Orr, right? 80 tackles on the year for the linebacker. He's looked great to go along with 4 sacks. Leads the team in both. So, there's other than that guy, there's plenty of other, great players like Johnson. Of course, you got Deal out there, defensive tackle with 2.5 sacks on the year. So TCU can get after it. There's no question, I think. And I'm going to lean with the Horned Frogs pulling up the win in this one at home. And for Iowa State, they put up a good fight, but I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs in this matchup. Let's go final score here. Let's go 28 for TCU, and for Iowa State, we'll go 17. We will see how that matchup shakes out.
I'm pulling up their schedule real quick because I just had a realization. They kind of control their own destiny because they're 4-2 in conference. So, and they face BYU and Cincinnati, which is 2 other teams kind of vying for that spot. So, they could really theoretically cause some chaos, and I guess not really control their own destiny, but they're not statistically out of it by any means if they handle business and win out. Because like I said, with the 2 remaining games against BYU and Cincinnati, that's huge. They play Houston as well. But I was just looking at it because I for some reason I thought they had 1 more loss in there. When I realized they had the 2, they're kind of in that 2-loss race, and
they're
that's
going to
be
middle
interesting to figure out with the Big 12 because there could be a lot of teams there that finish at the end with a 2-loss, and it's going to be who's tiebreaker who,
and just how all that goes. Yeah, but like I said, they're kind of middle of the pack right now because they're kind of grouped together. With you mentioned with Houston, with Utah, with Arizona State, all those teams have 2 losses in conference play. Only difference, however, is TCU only has 3 wins. Because they've only played 5 games, right? So if they win this one,
so that's why it has them so low.
Yeah, if they win this matchup, then they'll be lumped together, potentially with all the other teams I just
Right.
mentioned previously. So that's why they have
Gotcha.
them ranked just a smidge lower, because they've only played 5 out of conference games. But obviously, we know that's about to change here. And
But
so
yeah,
then
with
TCU
that,
has a good shot to like I said, really either cause chaos in the brackets or just shoot themselves up with a few weeks left.
Yeah, but I lean TCU that way too. That's kind of where I think they do pull this one out. I got them winning 35-28. I think it's close, but a late touchdown makes the difference.
All right, yeah, we will see how that matchup goes here, and best of luck both these teams as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. And Brandon, our final game we're going to be talking about here, we saved the best one for last. So did the College Game Day crew this weekend, and it's going to be a madhouse here. BYU and Texas Tech, the Cougars versus the Red Raiders. Someone's going to go home defeated. Someone's going to be ecstatic going into next week. Boy, oh boy, what a matchup do we have here. Number 7 BYU and number 8 Texas Tech. Going to be out there in Lubbock, Texas with a noon kickoff. All right, Brandon, let's get into it. How do you like this one faring out?
Oh man, it's going to be a good matchup. I've gone back and forth. I'll say who I want to win is not who I think is going to win. We'll get into the pick here in a bit, but man, they're already camping out. I think it was like yesterday or the day before. They were down. Their students are showing up their tents and stuff, and they're already camping out for game day. So that's cool. The environment's going to be crazy. Get your tortillas ready. I think that's the Texas Tech thing, right? Chucking the
Yes, they
tortillas.
chuck the tortillas.
Yeah, I think the place is going to be electric, and 2 weeks in a row, a Big 12 on game day is huge, and so we need an electric atmosphere just for the show of the conference, and then we need this to be a game. We need it to be fireworks. We need it to just have everything, just to help that put that feather in the cap, if you will, for the Big 12 as far as on the home stretch of having arguments for the for the final 12 teams in the college playoff. But with that being said, getting down into it, instantly you look at the trenches. BYU, Bear and Martin are they're
Yes.
the combination of their running attack is going to be huge here because. What do they do if they do get stopped? We haven't really seen a team that per se stopped them. So that's going to be the biggest thing. But if there's a team out there that I would point to that has a D line to do it, it is Tech. Their run defense is real. So that's going to be an interesting watch there. But same thing, BYU's run defense is real too. So both teams want to run the ball and take shots down the field, but it's going to come down to who can actually win in the trenches and do that. I think I see. I mean, all the money that Tech's put into it, I see Tech winning in the trenches. Where the difference is going to be is how does BYU's secondary hold up to the vertical attack of Texas Tech? Because they're going to get time to throw. BYU isn't a high pressure team. I think they more. I call them. They get key pressures. They get in good times or when they need a play to be made, they get a pressure, but they're not just squeezing the air out of the quarterback back there. And that's going to be big. Is how well does their secondary hold up with the vertical attack? I think Morton has time to throw back there. And some of it watching in comparison with the Utah game, Utah, they wouldn't stay consistent with the passing game, but there was susceptibilities. There was some holes found in BYU's defense, and that was by Utah's passing attack, which Texas Tech's passing attack is higher ranked and much more potent and explosive. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up there. And then like I said, where can they put in a few wrinkles in their running game and stuff? Because I don't think they can just run the ball at this Texas Tech defense. They're going to have to get some chunk plays. Chase Roberts and Kingston are going to have to get alive and because that's like if you look at Arizona State, that's how they beat Tech was making plays downfield. Tyson making big catches. So they're going to have to stretch the field vertically if they think they're going to have a chance in this game. And I don't know, home atmosphere, game day. That's not Utah that they're playing against. So that little extra motivation and extra oomph in the tank. I don't, let's see if it's there. I'm not saying it can't, but we got to see it. And you're not in Provo. It's not a night game in Provo. You're a 10 o'clock or I guess noon game in Texas, which is, that's, it kind of sucks that big of a game is being played that early, but,
Yeah.
because that's 10 a.m. here. Like you barely got time to pregame.
You got to wake up early for that.
Or get that Diet Coke if you're, on the BYU fan base there. But, yeah, I mean, caffeine free Coke. Sorry.
Oh, of course. Yes.
But yeah, I think this is going to be too much. I will say I want BYU to win. I want them to win out. And then I want, all the chaos to happen that Utah gets its second shot in a championship game against BYU, which that means Tech's got to drop one and one more elsewhere. But honestly, I don't see it. I got Tech winning this game 35-17. I think they handle it. Like BYU squeaked out wins. They haven't, who have they convincingly pounded in the Big 12?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Squeaking it out ends here is kind of where I'm at. But like I said, I want BYU, but I think Tech wins it.
Yeah, and like I said, this is going to be a good matchup here. Both these teams, like I said, are currently in the top 12, but you have to think that whoever loses, that might not be the case after this week for that ranking system. And with BYU, also another factor, they are coming off of a bye week, which means they could be slow out the gates. As for Texas, got home crowd. You played last week, you got a good win. You're amped up, you're ready to go. You just got to hope for the Cougar fans out there that they don't come out slow at the gate, just because, like I say, you didn't play last week. And we know some guys can, relax a little bit more. Takes a little bit longer to get going. So that's always a factor. You can't really, figure out in numbers or anything like that, but you can only just always have in the back of your head. As for, like I said, BYU, they've looked great overall this season. How could they not? Perfect 8-0. But you mentioned their record, the teams that they've faced. Looking at the only ranked team at this moment, they beat up they beat Utah, 3-point win in that one. But other than that, a lot of unranked teams, and like I said, a lot of wins. But we had some close calls, right? 24-21 against Colorado, as well as, like we said, 24-21 against Utah. And then also,
and that's the same Colorado team that lost by 30 points to the Utah team. That's kind of my point, is like how they've been lucky. They've squeaked out some games. I don't think you'd get that with Texas. Tech's going to play sound football, and I mean, like I said, they squeaked it out versus Utah, and Tech rolled us. So
yeah, and they also had just a 6-point win against Arizona just a few weeks ago. So
yeah.
Like I said, they've won. They've looked good, obviously, but it hasn't been, just the kind of pure domination that we've seen more so on Texas Tech side for most of the season. But like you said, with BYU, heavy dose of Bachmeier, of Martin, a lethal kind of 1-2 punch we've talked about. Chase Roberts as well. I mean, Parker Kingston's looked really solid. They have a lot of just talented guys all across the field. And like I said, for defense, they can get it done as well with Kelly. 5 sacks, look great over there. Glasker as well, too. Like I said, 2 sacks looks good. And Schnuver, just a handful of guys who can really get to the quarterback. 17 sacks on the year for them, as well as 12 interceptions. So very active on defense. And as you said, flipping over Texas Tech now. Only loss came against Arizona State. And that was – I believe Sam Levitt played in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did.
And that was
we thought he wouldn't, and he came out and killed it.
And we saw him. I think it came out earlier in the week that he's done for the year, right? He is.
Yeah.
They're tapping out.
Now he is done. Yep, they shelved him.
Yeah. So unfortunate for Sam. Like I said, he had that kind of statement win on his resume for this season. But other than that, I mean, Texas Tech is just beating up everyone convincingly. I mean, they're coming off, 242 or a 42 and a 43-point performance. And I mean, honestly, they had a rough day on defense and giving up 20 points. They normally don't do that.
Yeah, they're pretty stingy.
Yeah, they are very stingy. And hey, I mean, 20 points, you'll take that against any team. At least if it's my team, if it's Utah, usually that's a great number to have. But for with as good as Texas Tech has been this year, that's an off day, which is a good thing to have, I guess. But like you said, with the Red Raiders, a really good team overall. And you know about the weapons you can get on both, offensive side, defensive side. They're going to come at you, hard and heavy with, Morton is going to be in this game, I believe, because he's also been battling some injury woes, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he should be good, as well as obviously Cam Dickey, who's looked good, as well as Jacoby Williams, a guy who's the second string or the backup running back, but he's got 525 yards. So I mean, they have just a really solid attack. For offense, that you've got with Morton there, with Dickey and Williams. But your receiving core, you mentioned, like I said, you got Caleb Douglas and Coy Eakin. Both those guys have, combined 8 touchdowns, 4 pop. And I mean, like I said, defense, they've got, David Bailey, right? 11.5 sacks.
Oh, dude's a beast. Dude, he's got a bend around the edge and an insane get off that, I mean, we'll see it. We'll be seeing him playing on Sundays for sure.
Yeah. And also another linebacker, his linebacker in crime there. I mean, this is a tremendous season that's just kind of been overshadowed by how dominant Bailey's been. But Romello Height, right? 6 sacks on the year. He's got 12 tackles, 21 in total, but 6 of them come from the sacks. So, I mean, he's had a tremendous year also.
But also throw out Jacob Rodriguez. That I became a fan of that guy. Just, I mean, when I saw him play against Utah, he gained my respect. But he's at 7 forced fumbles on the season. Like, that dude is a peanut punching fool.
Yeah, and I think that it's fun to watch that team, right? It's fun to watch. Texas Tech doing what they did. And I will say the latest I see here about Morton is that he's listed as probable. But I hear probable, I think you're good to go.
Right. Yeah.
Because
playing a little smoke and mirrors.
Right. Yeah. Just to maybe mess with the head a little bit. That could be the case.
Make them have to check tape on both quarterbacks at least. Divide their time a little bit. Whittingham's the king of it.
Yeah. He knows that game. Inside and out. He's been doing it for so long. But I'm gonna agree with you on this. I think that overall, Texas Tech, while yes, they do have the one loss, I think that as a club they are better, offensive and defensively. I think BYU has some really good, weapons to counteract that. And it wouldn't surprise me, obviously, if BYU wins. They've looked great. This would be a good statement win for them. Obviously, like we said, they just haven't played a ton of tough competition. And that's not to their discredit. That's just how the schedule was made.
Yep.
And for Texas Tech, they, for the most part, right, have seen the challenge. They've beaten it. And since, a loss a couple of weeks ago, they've came back. They've looked sharp. So I think that with Texas Tech, you're going to get the win in this one. I'll go final score. Let's go. I think we'll go a little bit of a shootout here. I'll go 42 for the Red Raiders. And for BYU, I'll give them 28. I'll have them putting up the most points against Texas Tech this season, but still keep it under 30. So I think that Texas Tech kind of pulls away with it. But I think that that's how it's going to go this upcoming weekend. Well, Brandon, any final thoughts here before we head out and wrap up the show here today?
Just kind of on big picture things. Looking as the first college football rankings came out, eight and or what was it? 7 BYU, 8 Texas Tech. I think in good spots. I wonder if BYU had a more not dominant resume, but like we went over their resume. If they had buried teams, would they be right up there in like the 5 or 6 spot with the other undefeated teams? Is that the difference in why those other couple teams that have a loss are in front of them? That'd be my question. Because like I said, they've beaten everybody in front of them, so credit to them. But in the world of college football that we live in now, every point matters. I think Tech understands that, which is why in some close games, when they finally get that damned break at the end, they have tried to put points on the board because they understand that in the eyes of the resume, committee, they're going to evaluate that. So that was kind of surprising to see, but good to see 2 Big 12 teams in. The other surprising factor, I did not expect Utah to be ranked 13, right on the fringe of the 12-team playoff. That's huge. That means, like I said, that means they go off the resume. They do, respect the 2 losses that they have there. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Big 12 shakes out. I honestly think if the teams keep playing as good a football as they are, we could see Tech, BYU, and Utah make the college playoff.
Yeah, and obviously we saw, we didn't talk about Utah because they're off this week, and you guys could just be sitting at home, and you could be a top 12 team depending on how this matchup goes and the rest of the week.
That's how you win the bye week, baby.
That is exactly how you win the bye week. Is you sit at home, you relax, you watch all your conference games. Obviously, you see which one of the top 12 wins and goes home and loses and drops out, and your first crack to get in. So that's got to be a good feeling.
And I'll throw out, there's two teams in front of us that have 2 losses. They're tied with Utah's two lost teams, but Texas is one of them, and then Oklahoma is one of them. They're big name programs that you gotta, you can't discredit. But Texas has got to face Georgia at Georgia before the end of the season, so you can almost. I'm leaning to almost chalking up at least one more loss for Texas. And same thing with Oklahoma. Oklahoma has to go to Alabama. So unless they're going to go to Alabama and get a dub, they're probably pulling a third loss. So that's 2 teams in front that theoretically you expect to drop out, because unless put it in the comments if you think Texas and Alabama, or not Alabama, but if Texas and Oklahoma can win those games, but I don't see it. I see one more loss on them. So I see an easy path to be a top 12 team at the end, to have 3 teams in there for the Big 12.
Yeah, and the only other team in there that does have 2 losses before you get to all the 1-loss teams is Notre Dame, who are 6-2 on the season. And just a quick peek at their schedule, they're going to be playing 4 more games for the rest of the year. They actually have a tough matchup this weekend. They're going against Navy, who's 7-1,
playing good football.
Not a pushover, Navy. Following that, you have at the time number 24 ranked Pittsburgh, which is always going to be a challenge against any top ranked team. In the year against Syracuse and Stanford, 2 games that they should relatively win. But I say you got to get through these 2 if you're Notre Dame. These are your 2.
Is that at Syracuse though?
I believe so.
Because I know that historically Syracuse, or like Notre Dame, has struggled with Syracuse in Syracuse.
Yeah, let me look it up here real quick. I just had it. And
I know I said I didn't have that. It's like the one game actually, I didn't have.
I stand corrected. They're going to be at home.
Oh, okay.
Notre Dame's at home against Syracuse this year.
That changes it a little bit. But
yeah,
then if it's a 2 loss, like you look at the 2 losses.
Yeah.
Then and it's also, then it's resume and who'd you lose to, and the Utes, their 2 losses are the 2 top 10 teams, where Notre Dame, one of their losses is to an unranked. I know it was like Ohio State and then unranked somebody.
I forget who off the top of my head, but yeah,
I can't remember who, but I remember that it was because I was like I said, like 2 ranked top 10 losses or 1-1.
Yeah, it's now we're going to get into the oh, well, I lost by 7 to this team. No, well, you lost by 10 to that team. We're getting into that territory once again here in the college football playoffs.
Well, and that's why it's interesting.
How many teams you put into it?
If Tech loses, say theoretically Tech loses this game, and then BYU wins out, I guess it's like what I was seeing. If Arizona State can also win out, it would put Tech, Arizona State, and Utah in a 3-way tie. That would like they all go, they all have it over each other. And then from what I understand, I think it's strength of schedule, and Utah would go. But it's like that's where we're getting into that is like, wait, why did this Tech team lose to this Arizona State team that got whipped by 30 points by Utah? So it's really going to be interesting how it kind of shakes out. But the respect the Big 12's been shown so far, just based on the first college football ranking, we're being valued higher than the ACC right now.
Yeah, and honestly, that's how it's looking. When you look at the conference comparisons, but we'll see how all these games shake out this week. And like I said, we got a lot of good matchups here. Once again, going to go by them. We got BYU and Texas Tech, the big matchup of the weekend. Iowa State and TCU, 2 teams kind of in that middle ground looking to advance. Followed up by more of that, Kansas taking on Arizona. And finally, first game we talked about was Houston and UCF. That's going to be a Friday night game, so that's going to be fun to watch here tomorrow. Tomorrow night, watch football going into the weekend. So that's going to be a good slate of games, we hope. And of course, we're going to have 4 more games for you next week here on our Big 12 weekly roundup and game preview show. Brandon Larson, thank you so much as always for coming on the show, lending your knowledge about the Big 12 and just football in general, talking about all these great teams here today. Always pleasure, man. Like I said, we'll be back again next week here on the channel. Once again, if you enjoy the show, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Facebook and YouTube, main 2 platforms. But you can also find our podcast as well on the Believe Podcast Network. So for Brandon Larson, I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. This has been our Big 12 weekly roundup and game preview show. We'll see you again next week.